there's been a very, very large attack, the largest rocket or largest missile attack in the history of the war between Ukraine and Russia, going back all the way to 2022 when the war started. The Russians fired rockets, missiles at and drones at every major city in Ukraine, from the south down in Odessa through the center of the country in Dnipro to the west of the country in Lviv and the east of the country in Kharkiv and the center in Kyiv. 110 missiles and a whole bunch of drones fired at the country all at once. So let's talk about this for a minute, talk about why this might have happened. I've seen some pundits kind of thinking that maybe the reason that Russia is making this large of an attack on Ukraine today is because they're trying to knock out the power. Well, they weren't able to do it last time, and the power grid has been significantly strengthened since then for this year. And so, and not only that, we're already almost halfway through the winter at this point. And so I don't think that was the main purpose of this massive attack. You kind of have to wonder if at some point it's not going to be like the grand finale when you go watch the fireworks for 4th of July. When things really start blowing up, you know that the end is near. And I've always said that that would probably be the case in Ukraine when things really start getting bad. We know the end is near. Now, there have been some rumors flying around that Vladimir Putin is open to peace negotiations with Ukraine. Ukraine obviously is very tired of fighting. They never wanted to fight in the first place. And both sides have lost just profane amounts of men and materiel. Russia is starting to look at this, I think, and say, the longer, if this goes on much longer, we're not going to have really any military to fight with, because they've run through the vast majority of their armor and equipment, missiles, tanks, things like that. Now the U.S. Intel agencies have said that they believe it's going to take Russia about 18 years to build back to the strength they were at before the war began. So that's a pretty significant hit to the Russian military, and it will get to a point, if this continues, that the Russian military, becomes vulnerable to just not even being able to protect its homeland. There are more and more attacks happening inside Russia. The Ukrainians have gotten very good at homegrown drone, both waterborne and airborne drones, that they are sending in and blowing up things all over Russia, at least in the western part, and down in Crimea in the occupied territories and the Donbass and that sort of thing. So I'm not saying that Ukraine is kicking the Russians' butt. They are, in a military sense, for the most part, at least keeping the Russians from making a lot of progress. The Russians have just recently taken Avdiivka, Marinka, which is right next to Avdiivka. And I was actually there on my last trip, this last June, and Russia has taken that small town. Was, if you see the videos of it, there's nothing left of that town. There's literally nothing left of it. I mean, it's just powdered at this point. So it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory, because they're taking small amounts of ground at very, very great cost. Thousands of Russian soldiers dead to take that small village that nobody cared anything about before now. And the one thing that Russia does have, though, is lots and lots of men. And they certainly don't mind spending them. So they'll throw those guys into the fray and do their best to drown Ukraine in a sea of Russian blood if that's what it takes to win this fight. But it's more the materiel, I think, that is starting to really concern the generals in the Russian military, the armor and the planes and the other equipment, that sort of thing, that they are getting very low on. And so, like I say, I think if I had to guess, I would say that the reason for this attack today is either that they are softening up the Ukrainians, they're trying to keep them busy recovering from this massive strike so that they can try to, make a move on the battlefield and actually break the stalemate along the front lines. Or, and this is the more likely thing, I think, is that they are trying to prepare the ground for peace talks. They're trying to put as much pressure on Ukraine as possible to, get them to the negotiating table. Because Ukraine has always said, Vladimir Zelensky has always said, that we are not going to give up until we get back all of the terrain that we've lost that is Ukrainian terrain. That means all of the Donbass and the Crimea. And it's been the rallying cry of the Ukrainians throughout this thing that we're not just going to beat off this attack, we are going to take back what Russia took from us in 2014. And I think that is kind of unrealistic, to tell you the truth, but that has been the position that Vladimir Zelensky has taken. And I think maybe what this large attack, most of the 110 missiles that were sent, and missiles and drones that were sent into Ukraine today, were aimed at civilian areas. And so it seems to me like Russia, this is Russia doing its best to put pressure on the Ukrainian government by way of its people, by getting the people so tired and so angry and so upset at this constant barrage of rockets they've been under for more than 2 years now. And just having them go to their government and say to Zelensky, enough is enough. Just get to the negotiating table and put a stop to this. That would be my guess. And again, I guess it remains to be seen. I'm not really excited about making predictions in any kind of war, because if there's anything I've learned in 20 years of doing this job, it's that there are 1,000 things that can happen tomorrow that literally we can't plan for. And nobody knows the minds of men. I don't know what Vladimir Putin is thinking, but just, again, trying to read between the lines here. Why would you fire 110 missiles, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of missiles at Ukraine, and Ukraine shoots down 90% of them and you kill 12 people? That's not a good return on your investment unless you are just trying to get Ukraine to the negotiating table.